Welcome to Train Signal. You're watching What Do You Do When Your Domain Controller Blows Up? And we're going to talk about strategies that we can use when we're going to be recreating a dead domain controller. So in this video, we're going to start off with a little bit of an uh-oh. We have to talk about, a potentiality and an inevitability. Eventually one of your domain controllers is going to freak out and either the hardware is going to blow up, the Active Directory database will, spaz out. I mean, there's all kinds of things that might happen. I will just talk about one potentiality. Then we're going to talk about seizing operations masters for a quick restoration of functionality. Remember those whole operations masters things we were talking about a while back? Yeah, if one of your domain controllers actually does end up blowing up, you got to be able to get your operations master's functionality back. And it's real easy. It's real short. I'll show that to you. And then we're going to just talk a little bit about possible solutions for restoring domain controllers. Now, here's the deal. In this particular section, I'm only going to talk about all these techniques because, you know what, I've already shown them all to you. And you're going to find that, all the techniques I'm going to talk to you about in terms of restoring domain controllers, you already know because you've already watched all the other videos. So I'm not going to sit here and go back through and redo everything that we just did, especially since two of the techniques I just showed you in the last video. Okay? So if you don't remember them, go back and watch that last video again, all right? You're going to find out that restoring domain controllers isn't that difficult. Now, of course, this is assuming that you do your backups on a regular basis, and if you don't, well, there's nothing you can do. Okay? And it's also assuming that you have at least 2 domain controllers in your environment, which is always a good idea. I don't care if you have a shop of 5 or 10 people, you really should have at least 2 domain controllers out there running so you have some redundancy. Okay? And if your boss is too cheap to spring for the second domain controller, beg, borrow, or plead, and get a second domain controller so you have some built-in backup functionality there. Okay, let's go ahead and let's get into this here. Here at GlobalMantics, the inevitable happens. NYDC has blown up completely. It is a quivering mass of metal that screeches and whines when it tries to start up. I don't know exactly what happened, but pretty much the best way to describe the current state of NYDC3 is this. Okay? Yes, that's right. That, my friends, is a picture of toast. All right. And it is inevitable that someday you're going to encounter a situation where one of your domain controllers is just going to be exactly what you see on the screen. It's going to be toast. There may be butter. There may not be butter. There might even be jelly. Who knows? But regardless, one of these times you're going to end up with a domain controller that will not work. Now, here's the deal. You need to decide what you're going to be doing with this domain controller. The good news is that in GlobalMantics, remember, we set up 2 additional domain controllers. So users can still log in. We're probably not going to have a huge problem with that. But the bad news is that DC3, or at least it was, your infrastructure master. Okay? So that means we need to get our infrastructure master role back onto another one of those machines. We kind of talked about the reason why we set up these 3 different domain controllers to allow us some flexibility in transferring the roles in case of the inevitable, which is one of your domain controllers blows up. So here's the deal. We need to get the infrastructure master role back up online as fast as we can, and then we're going to talk about how we're going to get DC3 back. Okay. So let me tell you how to seize an operations master role, also known as a FSMO, right, when the machine doesn't exist anymore. Right? So the first way that we can do this is we can actually do this through the graphical user interface, through the server manager. First of all, we can try to move the operations master from the GUI like we would normally. All right? So we already know how to change in operations masters, right? I've shown you that in a previous video. So again, nothing really new here. But when you try to move an operations master from another machine that doesn't exist anymore, it's going to get angry with you. Okay? We'll see what that's going to look like. And then we can also change the operations master roles using NTDS util. And this is a command line option we've been taking a look at in a couple of videos here. And we can also seize it with this following operation. Now, of course, we're going to go into NTDS util like we would normally, right? And I've already shown you how to do that. You type NTDS util, then you go ahead and you type activate instance NTDS as your first command, like we always do, right? Then you type roles, okay? So we would just simply type the word roles into ntdsutil to get into that roles context. Then if you want to, you could type help to get the list of commands. But here's the command that you're actually going to use. We would type C's infrastructure master. Yeah, it really is that easy. Okay. One of the reasons why I really like ntdsutil is that most of the commands are not that crazy complex. It's pretty English, and so it's not nearly as crazy as a lot of the other command line tools are. So, tell you what, we know that NYDC3 is down, so let's go ahead and let's bounce on over to NYDC2, and let's move the infrastructure master over to it initially. Let's see if we can't get this done, okay? All right, well, here we are over on NYDC2, and we're going to go to the rules section, of course, and where we're going to go but Active Directory Domain Services. Big surprise, right? And we'll expand Active Directory users and computers here. Let's stretch this guy out. And we're going to right-click on globalmantics.com, and we're going to click here on Operations Masters. Now, right now, our RID master's on NYDC2, the PDC is on NYDC2, but the infrastructure master, when I click on it, it looks like it's kind of stalling me out here. Looks like I'm seeing only the hourglass. Well, this could be a problem. Why is this a problem? Well, the infrastructure master is toast, right? So right now, NYDC2 is trying to find the infrastructure master, but it doesn't exist anymore. And so this is obviously going to be a significant issue for us. And you see, it tells us that the operations master is in a state of error because, it's not there. Now, initially, it's going to tell me that the role cannot be transferred because the current operations master is offline. So I'm going to click on change anyway, okay? Now, of course, it's telling me that NYDC2 is a global catalog server, and the infrastructure operations master role should not be transferred to a global catalog server. Remember that this is true unless all of your domain controllers are global catalog servers. If all of your DCs are global catalogs too, then it's okay. All right? So don't feel like you absolutely have to have a non-global catalog domain controller just to have the infrastructure master not on a global catalog, right? All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to see if I can transfer it over to this GC server right now. I'm going to tell it yes. And let's just see what kind of message that it's going to give to us when I give this a whirl. Now, you'll notice here that the hourglass is still going, and it is taking a little bit of time because, all right, here we go. The requested FSMO operation failed. The current FSMO holder could not be contacted. The current operations master cannot be contacted to perform the transfer. Under some circumstances, a forced transfer can be performed. Do we want to attempt a forced transfer? Well, at this point in time, I could go ahead and tell it yes, and I already know because I've already tried this out, is that chances are, unless something really strange happens, I could probably go ahead and hit yes, and I could go ahead and force the transfer anyway. Now I'm going to tell it no, okay? At least for the time being, because I do want to show you how to do this from ntdsutil as well, okay? So I'm going to go into command prompt, and we'll type in here ntdsutil, and then we're going to run our very first command, right? Activate instance ntds. Enter. There we go. And now I'm going to type in the roles context. Okay, so you see now it's put me into FSMO maintenance. And now I'm going to type in help, and I'm just going to take a quick look. Here's the one that we want, C's infrastructure master. Now you also see that C's naming master is there, C's PDC, C's RID, C's schema, and select operations. So we have some of the other ones. We also have transfer. Okay, now transfer is what we would do if we had the domain controller actually alive still. But NYDC has gone to domain controller heaven. So for the time being, these are not going to do any good for us at all. So we want to use the C's operations. So let's go ahead and let's try this here. C's infrastructure master. Okay. Oops, looks like I need to do one more thing here. We need to type in here connections. And that's the other thing I really like with this particular tool is that if I do something wrong, it actually gives me quite a bit of help here. All right, so I typed in connections, I typed in help to get the additional commands. So let's go ahead and let's type in here connect to domain. We're going to type in here globalmantics.com. Whoops, that's connect. Let's see if we can get this right here again. All right, there we go. Okay, so now we're connected. Go ahead and type quit here, and now let's see if we can go ahead and we can seize the infrastructure master. There we go. I just used the up arrow key to flip between the different commands. Now that I'm connected to the globalmantics.com domain, it's prompting me to saying, hey, are you sure that you want to seize this role? And yes, I am. I'm going to tell it yes. And now it's first of all going to try to attempt the safe transfer of an infrastructure FSMO. What it's trying to do is it's trying to connect to the old domain controller. Okay? It's trying to connect to NYDC3. Now if we could connect to NYDC3, let's say the NYDC3 just simply had an Active Directory database meltdown. Well, then that's a little easier on the transfer of different operations masters. But again, we know that NYDC3 is currently trashed. All right? So what we're doing is we're going to go ahead and we're going to seize this role because NYDC3 is just gone. And due to that fact, we have to just do what we call a seize. And you see here, transfer of infrastructure FSMO failed, proceeding with seizure. I got to tell you, I think this is probably one of the the funniest statements in the whole in all of Server 2008 land. So it's going to go ahead and proceed with its seizure of the infrastructure master. And so now that we have that, let's go back over here to the operations masters here. I'm going to click on PDC and click back on the infrastructure master. Actually, let's just go ahead and close that out and let's see if we can't get this guy to refresh here for us. We'll go into operations masters and infrastructure. Okay, there we go. Now we're indicating that NYDC2 2K8 is our new infrastructure master. And for the time being, that's going to be okay. All right. So we can close that. So we have successfully seized the infrastructure master away from NYDC3. Now, of course, NYDC3 didn't exist, right? So what we really did is we changed the directory structure to designate NYDC2 as the infrastructure master. So now all of our infrastructure master roles are up, back, and running. Now, eventually, what we need to do is we need to decide, all right, DC3 is gone. What are we going to do? Let's go ahead and bounce on over to the slides and let's talk about the different strategies that you might want to employ. And remember, all the strategies that I'm going to talk to you about, you already know how to do them. And so it's just a matter of applying techniques and skills that I've already taught you to this particular instance. Let's go ahead and let's talk about them. All right, so possible solutions for restoring a domain controller. And just before, actually, I'm going to hide that one just for a second. Let me tell you something, okay? We could do an entire course on Windows backup and all the different kinds of strategies involved in backup and all of that. We could even bring in Microsoft's System Center Manager stuff, which brings in a whole other set of tools. And then you have the Veritas backup. There's all kinds of different backup solutions. What I'm going to talk to you about right now is only the stuff that's native in Server 2008, okay? So here's the deal, all right? How you restore a domain controller depends on the situation. If your hardware and your Server 2008 operating system is okay, but let's just say that the Active Directory database has been trashed for some weird reason. Well, in that case, if you were smart and you've been doing your backups like a good IT administrator should be, then this one's easy. You can just do a system state restore from the last active backup. And you know what? I've already taught you how to do a system state restore. Okay? In the last video when I was talking to you about how to restore an OU, well, what did we do first? We used WBadmin and we did a system state restore. Okay? So if you're just restoring system state, you can actually stop at that one step. You don't have to go through and restore your organizational units. All right? So I've already taught you how to do a system state restore, but you're only going to do that if your hardware and your Server 2000 operating system is okay. Okay? Now, if your hardware is trashed, and your backup of your server that just blew up is in a different location. Let's say that you have it on a network attached storage server. Let's say it's on a DVD or whatever. Here's what you can do. You can build a brand new Server 2008, install Windows Server Backup, and then you just simply do a backup of the last, or I'm sorry, do a recovery of the last full backup of your DC3. Okay? But again, this does require the backup to be on a DVD or on a network attached server somewhere else other than the server that just blew up. All right? And again, this is only if your hardware is just completely trashed. All right, last one here. Let's say that you are the IT administrator of a 5-person shop, and you have 2 domain controllers because you listened to your coach, and Coach Culbertson says always keep at least 2 domain controllers running in an environment so you have redundancy. Let's say that you've been pretty lax about doing your backups. Okay, let's say you don't have a very recent backup. All right, well, here's the deal. Since NYDC3, or the secondary domain controller, is an auxiliary machine, you can go in, and in the situation of GlobalMantics, it's not that critical because we could just delete the New York Domain Controller 3 computer account from the Domain Controllers OU. All right? So we could do that. Then we could build a brand new Server 2008, install Active Directory domain services, and run DC Promo. Okay, basically, you're just going to rebuild a brand new domain controller. Then you're going to let replication do the job of restoring your Active Directory database. And for that, what do you got to do, right? Well, you could do repadmin sync all, like I taught you in the very beginning of this course, or you could just do nothing and just wait for the Active Directory stuff to replicate. And then what you would do is you would move the infrastructure master back to this new domain controller 3. Okay, and so basically all of this stuff, you know how to do this. This is easy, right? If you don't know how to do this, then you need to go back to video number 3, which is where we installed the first 2 domain controllers, because that's all we're doing in this particular section. If you have other domain controllers, then this one is pretty easy to do. If you only have 2 domain controllers, okay, instead of 3 like we have in GlobalMantics, you might have to still continue to move some of your operations masters around. Now I've taught you how to do that, right? So it's not hard. All the stuff you already know how to do. I'm not going to waste your time and teach you how to do it again, because if you need to know how to do it again, you go back and watch those videos. Okay? The only difference here is that you have a domain controller that blew up instead of restoring one that already exists, right? Okay. So tell you what, let's talk about the critical vocabulary, let's talk about the wrap-up stuff, and let's move on to the next video. All right, so the new vocabulary for this one, this is toast. What a domain controller smells like when it blows up. Okay, it really doesn't smell like toast, just so you know. It really smells like burning and metal and plastic, and it's really usually not very much fun. But in this particular video, I didn't really teach you any new words, did I? I've already taught you all of these different skills. All you have to do is just simply apply those skills in a situation in which one of your domain controllers has gone bye-bye. So no real new concepts. I think I taught you one new command, right? Cs in NTDSutil, but everything else, it's all the same. It's just stuff I've already taught you. So after viewing this video, you should be able to do 2 things. You should be able to seize an operations master, and I showed you 2 ways to do that, didn't I? It's real easy, shouldn't take very much time, and you're thereby transferring the functionality to a live domain controller. And again, you're only going to use the strategy, you're only going to use the seize strategy when a domain controller has gone away. Okay? Otherwise, you can usually just simply transfer an operations master over to a live domain controller. You don't have to do the seizing thing. And the other thing that I taught you, and that is, basically just use the skills that you've learned in these previous videos to identify a methodology to restore a domain controller to functional status. Now remember, you should have at least 2 domain controllers. Okay? If you don't, you're going to be asking for trouble. Now, let's say you only have 1 domain controller. Let's talk about that situation for just a second, because you know what? I know there's going to be some of you who are going to be in that situation. If you only have 1 domain controller, you had better be doing backups every night. You might be doing them at noon too. I mean, you should have that sucker well backed up, because if that one domain controller in your small network goes down, you're done. If you can't restore that domain controller from backup, it might be time to go find a new job, because the boss is probably not going to be very happy with the fact that you have to rebuild the entire domain controller. So do your backups religiously. Do them early, do them often. Make sure you keep the backups in a safe location. Okay, so tell you what, let's go ahead and we're done with this one. Let's go ahead and let's move on to the next video.